Renee, can we have roll call, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Gonzalez.
Here.
Councilmember Cantu. Here. Councilmember Peralta.
Here.
Councilmember Han.
Here.
If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. French. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could just stay standing for just a moment of silence with regards to the incident that happened in Pakistan recently where 120 innocent lives were taken. Thank you. Council, item 5 is the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Item 6 is public hearings. A, community development block grant current and proposed projects. This is a public hearing regarding the progress of the current community development block grant project and the submission of grant application to the Department of Finance and Administration Local Government Division for a small cities community development block grant program. The purpose of the public hearing is to report on past CDBG program activities and to receive public input on the community development needs and suggestions for future CDBG projects.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like Linda Perry to come forward in that she met with our state representatives and obtained some information in regards to our qualifying that I think might give us a little more latitude if you wanted to use it.
Okay. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, Manager Bellis. So I'll speak to just a moment about the CDBG program because it is different this year than it has been in the past. As you know, this program is specific to low and moderate income residents. And each year, DFA determines that percentage of low to moderate income residents per municipality or county. And in the past, Miranda tells me that Taos has typically had anywhere from 44 to 49% low to moderate income residents. But that wasn't enough to select a project, a community-wide project. The magic number is 51%. And this year is a little bit different. The DFA used a American Census data along with the census. And Taos has been determined to have 53% low to moderate income residents. So what that means is that we can do a project that's community-wide and without having to do a survey. So it's a little bit different. In the past, we've selected projects that were in neighborhoods of low to moderate income residents. This year, we don't have to do that. French could probably speak to the streets, the projects, the infrastructure streets projects that we may want to be able to do that we haven't been able to do in the past. I did put a copy of the ICIP up to each one of you so that you can go through those projects and think about those community-wide projects that we now have an opportunity to do should you want to do so. For example, the number one is the Taos Plaza reconstruction, the utilities. So that is something that is an eligible project that hasn't been in the past. Manager Bellis, did you want to walk through the ICIP or what did you want to do?
That's at the pleasure of the council.
I'd like to walk through the rankings of the ICIP and how they went. Councilor Peralta.
I think before we get this, since this is a public hearing, I'd like to hear from the people in the audience what they have in mind. But I think prior to that, since this is also a report of existing projects, that we should have a report on what's going on right now with the CDBG grants that we have, and then listen to what the public has to say, and then we can go through some of these projects and then get back input from the public after they hear them as well.
I think you're absolutely correct. So Miranda and French. Just turn it over to you. Good evening.
Good evening.
We'll go ahead and go through, if it's okay with you, the same procedure we went through last time. So the purpose and history of the Community Development Block Grant. The program objectives are that they benefit principally low and moderate income families, aid in the prevention of slum and blight, meet urgent community development needs where an existing condition poses a threat to the health and welfare of the community, and other financial resources are not available. For the last fiscal year, $8.4 million was available for these projects. Eligible applicants include all counties, incorporated municipalities, with the exception of the cities of Albuquerque, Las Cruces, Santa Fe, Farmington, and Rio Rancho. Water and mutual domestic associations may apply for a planning grant through their county. Sanitation districts, public nonprofit groups, etc. cannot apply directly for assistance, but may apply through an eligible municipality or county. And Indian pueblos and tribes receive funding directly from HUD. Eligible activities and categories include community infrastructure, which consists of water and sewer systems, street improvements consisting of roads, streets, curbs, gutter, sidewalks, traffic control devices, and municipal utilities. Housing, which consists of real property acquisition, rehabilitation, clearance, provision of public facilities to increase housing opportunities, code enforcement, historic preservation activities, and a maximum of $65,000 in CDBG funds per home can be used to rehabilitate and repair a given home. Public service capital outlay includes community centers, senior citizen centers, community facilities designed to provide health, social, recreational, and other services to the residents. Economic development, which assists communities in creating or retaining jobs for low and moderate income persons. Creation or retention of businesses owned by community residents. Emergency, which addresses life-threatening situations resulting from disasters or threats to health and safety. We must have appropriate state agency concurrence. Local resources must be non-existent or unavailable. Planning, which is grant assistance must be used for a comprehensive plan if there has not been a current or updated plan within the last 5 years. Feasibility studies, base mapping, aerial photography, GIS systems, development of codes and ordinances, and there is a limit of $50,000 for planning grants. Colonias projects are for communities that are within 150 miles of the U.S.-Mexico border and have been designated as Colonias communities. Ineligible activities include city halls or county courthouses, general operation and maintenance expenses of public facilities. The only exception is if courthouses are not ADA compliant. Housing allowance payments and mortgage subsidies, expenditures for political purposes, and costs involved in preparing applications and securing funding. Program requirements. The applicants must conduct at least one public hearing prior to selecting a project to advise citizens of estimated CDBG funds available, types of projects available, obtain recommendations from citizens regarding community development and housing needs. A minimum of 3 hearings is recommended. The town of Taos will be holding 2. One was held on December 9th at 12:30, and the second is tonight. As Linda mentioned, the town's LMI for this year, last year we were at 44.5%, this year we're at 53%. Citizen participation must be encouraged with emphasis on low and moderate income persons by publishing public hearing notices in English and Spanish and using other means such as media or posting flyers in an effort to reach the public. Recommendations for the public are to be considered, and the project is selected at an official, regularly scheduled meeting of the governing body. Each CDBG application must address at least one of the 3 national objectives, either benefiting low and moderate income persons, preventing slum or blight, or meeting urgent or life-threatening community development needs. Application requirements. Requests are limited to $500,000. Planning grants are limited to $50,000. We may also submit phased requests. The applicant must meet threshold requirements. Any grantee with 1 or more active grants in infrastructure, public service, capital outlay categories, and Colonias projects cannot apply for additional funding until the current project is fully closed. Rural applicants of 3,000 or less must provide a minimum of 5% cash match. Non-rural applicants must provide a 10% cash match. Applicants may request a waiver of the matching requirement in the absence of local resources or apply for a loan to meet the matching requirement at least appropriate interest rates. Applications are scored by rating certain criteria such as description and need, benefit to low and moderate income persons, leveraging, citizen participation, planning, feasibility and readiness, user fees and revenues, and cost benefit.
The council also will take into consideration current economic situations if the entity was funded last year and the application presentation. Regarding our current and past CDBG projects, the current Town of Taos project is the Chamisa Area Infrastructure Improvements Phase 3, which consists of civil work, including the planning, design, construction, and furnishing of street improvements within the Town of Taos, including earthwork, base course surface, asphalt paving, curb and gutter, and sidewalks along Estes Road West from New Mexico 68 to Salazar Road, a distance of approximately 2,675 linear feet, and Salazar Road from Estes South to Chamisa Road, a distance of approximately 1,150 linear feet. This is the third phase of a three-phase project. The estimated completion date for this project is December 19th. We're currently at about 90% complete with it. Our past projects include Phase 2 of Chamisa Infrastructure in 2012, Phase 1 of Chamisa Infrastructure in 2011, Reed and Alexander Phase 2 road improvements in 2010, Reed and Alexander drainage improvements in 2009, and the Community Against Violence expansion in 2005.
Okay,
And that's where we are today.
thank you.
Thank you.
So at this time, I'd like to open the public hearing, open to the public. Is there anybody that'd like to speak under the public hearing? Come on up. Absolutely.
Councilors. My name's Carl Colonius, formerly of Rocky Mountain Youth Corps, and part of my reason for coming here tonight is to explain and introduce my next role that has to do with the development of recreational infrastructure. I've accepted a contract to facilitate a recreational master plan for the Enchanted Circles region. It will be multi-jurisdictional. It will be inclusive of the both incorporated as well as unincorporated communities throughout the Enchanted Circle with two distinct functions: serving local community members through recreational and alternative transportation infrastructure that will improve the health and vitality of our communities. Recreational infrastructure, trails, as an enhanced infrastructure will also potentially attract visitors to the area. And as sustainable tourism is a target of our communities, the improved both infrastructure as well as the marketing of that infrastructure for bikers and hikers to visit our communities should have a significant economic development impact as well. What I'm hoping to put on the table tonight is the construct of using community development block grants in the future. Certainly not in the current cycle, as we are not prepared for that. But to consider using the community development block grants for the construction of recreational infrastructure, connectivity between schools and community centers, both your hotspots like the Plaza and your parks, the Eco Park, et cetera, and to conceptualize a alternative transportation trail system that isn't just standalone Town of Taos, but connects broadly throughout the region, thinking consciously about connectivity to Bureau of Land Management and National Park Service, as well as, the National Monument, as well as the Carson National Forest. The community development block grants also have a component. There is an administrative pullout that you can use for community services. And this is something that I brought to this forum several times as my role of Rocky Mountain Youth Corps Executive Director. And it is something that, by and large, we have not taken advantage of as a community. I would ask that the town consider that as an ongoing component of your community development block grants. Essentially thinking about that as a means to contract for community services. In lieu of using your general fund, it certainly is an option for you to consider. One of the first steps of this is to think about the green print process that we're hoping the Trust for Public Lands will facilitate throughout the region. And we hope that the Town of Taos will be a partner in that process. We're hoping to have the Trust for Public Lands do a presentation to the town early in the next year on what the green print process entails. Ultimately, that's a multi-layered planning tool that will incorporate all of your previous plans, Vision 2020, et cetera, and incorporate that into looking down the road. And you can tailor the layers specifically to address your priorities.
Okay. Counselor Peralta?
No, I don't. I was just going to make a comment that under the rules I looked at, you can take 15% of the CDBG grant for administrative uses or contracting for.
Sure. That is a component that you can use for community services. It is something that we've not taken advantage of. You would incorporate that into your application. You would need to identify and acknowledge how that would be distributed and what your potential services, but it could be for after-school tutoring was the last time that I pushed hard on that particular topic. But it could be for recreational programming, it could be for prevention programming in your schools. You would then need to go out to bid and contract for those services using those CDBG dollars. 50 grand a year, kind of.
And by the way, when I brought that up to the administration, they didn't even know about it. Mm-hmm. That's because nobody had taken advantage of that.
Sure.
Throughout the state.
It is really rare. Santa Fe did it a couple of times, but yeah, you can look at other states. Colorado uses it. Arizona has used it. California, by and large, is a good model to look at.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Mayor? Carl, thank you for coming before us. I think, this is something that we've wanted to see for a while, which is especially in the area of multi-jurisdictional, because it kind of branches out all across the communities around, but even more importantly, the push that's been made within Taos County to promote a healthier lifestyle, and I think the key to that is accessible paths and whatnot.
Sure.
So how is the planning phase supposed to go? Is there going to, do we need to facilitate public hearings with regards to that also? To get the public involved? Because I think the biggest thing would be the input, and I know some of the hurdles have been some of the easements and whatnot, and I'd love to see a path from town all the way out to Seco, but I think there's some hurdles within
Sure.
that. So if we need to help facilitate that, I'm sure this governing body stands ready and willing to help facilitate those meetings as well too, because I think it's a great plan.
Sure. Let me just step back a little bit and talk a little bit about some of the steps that are coming. One of the first tasks is to do a comprehensive inventory. What are the assets that we currently have? Where are the kind of roads safe for recreational and or alternative transportation, and where are they not? And how do we build that system? You mentioned the trail from town out to Arroyo Seco. That is one of my priorities. I think rather than spend all of our time on a plan that could be seen as a three-ring binder on a shelf, we do want to jumpstart the development of the trail system, and we know that the Arroyo Seco into town avenue is not as user-friendly as it could be, specifically from the K-Tao intersection up to Arroyo Seco along 150. There's no shoulder to speak of. Cars are upwards of 55, 60 miles an hour, and it's dissuasive of anyone who wants to either, one, walk, ride a bike. I am negotiating with Taos Pueblo to get tribal council to pass a resolution to get an easement to the state so that we can use the right-of-way and get an off-road, 8-foot wide, multi-use, 4-season trail from K-Tao up to Arroyo Seco. And that would be within the right-of-way, which is tribal property, but there needs to be a distinct and standing alone easement from the tribe to the state in order to get that done. So working through those easements that's the challenge. That's not something that I think as a community we currently have the resources to do. The green print process will move us in that direction. And for the next year, that's going to be my focus.
Awesome. Mr. Mayor?
Carl, if you have any need to go with you to talk to the Pueblo, I volunteer to do that.
Okay.
I think we can help you with that if
Great.
needs be.
I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. It has been very successful. it's a long process. And we do have an invitation to make a second presentation to Tribal Council. So we're in the position now of asking for the resolution for the easement and convincing Tribal Council that it's a good thing.
Well, I know you've worked with the present council. Do we have, council be changing here probably at the first of the year?
Well, the War Chief and Governor's staff will, but the Tribal Council is, that's the,
Okay.
they don't change over that frequently.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Carl?
Yeah, thank you. I'm just here to echo and support the things that Carl is suggesting and recommending. And if you do decide to apply for a roadway improvement project, I'm just here, of course, to remind you about the bicycle master plan and consider, adding bike lanes, bike facilities, bike routes, just to make sure that whatever project you would get funded for, if it's a roadway, to consider road improvements for bikes.
Mr. Mayor, just a comment with regards to that with Matt. I was at the intersection of Paseo de Cañon and the main highway, and being that they put the charter school and the middle school at that intersection, can we put French more signage within that area? Because I saw a kid on his bike. He couldn't have been more than probably 11 years old, and it was nice to see that he was out getting exercise and he was extremely cautious. But looking around, there wasn't a lot of signage, and come this time of year with regards to the winter, our crossing lanes get pretty worn out. So I think some of those major intersections, especially in and around the vicinities of the schools, if we could just kind of be a little more vigilant that they exist, because I was proud of the little guy, but also a little worried about him.
So with that said, Councilor, I think Mr. Bellis has set up a opportunity for us to speak with DOT, and I think that's one that we should bring up with DOT also, because a lot of that is DOT, is state right away, and some of it is town, but the majority of it's going to be state. So that would be a great opportunity for us to bring that up also with them.
And I'd agree. Even aside from that, I know it's a state highway, but I'm sure they wouldn't object to us putting signs, because I know they tend to move a lot slower than we do. So,
anything else?
I guess I'd add on the thought, as we move towards recreational infrastructure and a trail system, it's both about the planning process, then it's about the implementation, and then it's about the maintenance. And I would urge the town to consider how you budget for those steps. Community Development Block Grant is certainly something to look at. There are other grants that come around through the Department of Transportation, through the state. But if you look at the timeline, at a certain point in time, it would be wise of the town to consider how to budget for not just that 3-ring binder on the shelf, but how to actually implement along those priorities and take a lead in that, in partnership with other local governments, so that we do have the opportunity to build out and then maintain the system. Simply building it does not mean that it's done. There will need to be, the ongoing maintenance, and different trails, different maintenance. You can get 25 years out of a pretty nice asphalt, but you still need to look at the maintenance of that. And if you look at Kit Carson Park, for example, I think that walking, jogging path is
about near its life.
Yeah, maybe 15 years ago. Former Mayor Peralta, does that ring a... So it does have some needs for repair, and that is something that you need to consider for and budget for. Simply building the infrastructure is just, the first step, then thinking about the maintenance and the ongoing upkeep. There's a lot of community energy behind these projects. I've been talking about it, and I've gotten literally 100% support for the idea of building out our trail system and being more conscious of how it would work for us. But I do want to plant that seed of thought in council's mind.
Thanks.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more comment, Mr. Mayor. I know you have a lot of options for this grant. You have affordable housing, water, sewer, roadways, all of that, and just ask you to keep in mind that trails and bike lanes and things really do help low-income folks who can't afford to drive. There's people riding on in snow, all kinds of crazy weather because they just have no choice. So just ask you to remind yourself that these kinds of facilities really do support low-income communities in Taos.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you. Where are we at, Counselor?
We are in public hearing, and we are, I don't know if there's any more members of the public. that
Is
wanna-
anybody else from the public that wants to speak or present? So it is a public hearing, so.
I was just,
Mr. Mayor, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just wondering, was this, where all was this advertised, this public hearing? Was it just in the paper, or? Where was it?
Madam Clerk?
Or-
Mayor, council members, Miranda published it in the Taos News twice or once?
It ran in the Taos News once, it's been posted on the city, on all the Chili Line buses, and it's also ran on Facebook.
It's ran on Facebook.
On Facebook, and then also I sent out a notice on Friday to all the media and anybody who's asked to be noticed of hearings.
So that's all the radio stations in Taos? Okay,
Radio
so,
stations, the Taos News, and
so all
many
of,
citizens.
all of former Mayor Cordova's
Yeah.
radio stations got it as
Yes,
well?
that's correct.
Okay. Wow.
It's a big crowd, huh?
It normally
Disappointing.
is.
And Counselor, you generally in the county, this is the same way it generally is. There's
All
not,
the years I've been doing it, it's the same thing. Nobody shows up.
yeah. And
Where
then-
are you people?
And
Come
then
on.
and then if we make the wrong decision, they're the first ones to show up. So, French, you have a presentation for us? or?
Thank
you, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
This is sad.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This evening, we are here on behalf of Public Works to present our proposal for the next round of CDBG funding. It is the completion of Camino de la Merced from where we terminated with this last project up to Salazar Road. We do have plan in hand. What I passed out there was just a brief summary of the project, an area map. We do have plan in hand. I have those with me. And pretty much that's it. We, on the back of your paper there, we did come up with a cost estimate based on the numbers that we used or that we received during the bid process for the first phase of Camino del Medio. The difference between that project and this project would be that if you look at the bottom of the cost proposal or the cost estimate, we have an additional $24,990 for a 3-foot bike lane. Depending on how bids come through, we could go up to the installation of the sidewalks, which is at $45,000, I believe, and quite possibly cut that back to install or to construct the bike lane through the typical section of the roadway. The current project will include curb and gutter and some underground storm sewer that taps into our existing network of piping. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have plan in hand, and we're ready to go with the engineering and with the entire project.
Counselor Peralta?
French, on this project, right now, there is no, beyond the curb and gutter section of that road, there's no paving to be completed on that repaving to Salazar, from basically the end of Walmart down west. So you're going to fix the utilities in the ground and then patch, and that's it. Is that what my understanding is?
On the current project?
Yes.
That's correct. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Peralta, that project originally started out as a water replacement project. And it just so happened that we got MAP funding for the roadway part, and that's why we constructed that first 300 foot of the project.
And does that 300 foot of the project have a 3-foot bike lane?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Peralta, no, it doesn't. At that point, the bicycles would have to merge with the traffic because we used up the entire section of the right-of-way because we have 3 lanes in there. So it pinched it, or it got wider. So at that point, the cyclists would have to merge in with the vehicular traffic.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Counselor?
French, does Camino de la Placitas not fall into that necessity as well for CDBG funds, being that we were short on construction of what should have happened this year? Because we have funds allocated to it right now, right? We're just short.
Quite a bit, yes. Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Gonzalez, given the information that Miranda and Linda provided you in the opening remarks, I would say that it would qualify. And
How much are you?
We're short about 400?
we're short, yes, about 350, yeah, on that project.
Mr. Mayor, French, what is the description of that project on Placitas? What needs to be done, just to refresh the councils?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Peralta, members of the council, the intent behind that project was to fix the failing road around the manholes that are situated in the roadway. Originally, when the project was built, it was built per plan. However, the vertical elevations of the roadway were so flat that once we got even a half-inch of settlement, the water started ponding, and it started seeping in between the curb and gutter and the asphalt, and that's what settled the roadway. So the new project would entail, or it does entail the re-engineering of the vertical alignment to get the water to the storm drains. It includes the installation of 2 additional storm drains and replacement of curb and gutter and sidewalk on the west end. It also includes the reconstruction of Civic Plaza Drive.
Mr. Mayor, in your estimate, which is the larger priority, Merced or Placitas?
Mr. Mayor, given Councilmember Peralta, given the priority of the governing body to enhance the downtown area, it would be very obvious that Camino de la Placita would be a priority, and I apologize for not preparing something for that. It never even crossed my mind.
But on that, the traffic on Placitas is how many times greater than Merced?
I would say it's about 7 to 8 times greater, and when we put the project out to bid, we put it out to bid twice, and the 2 items that were consistently high were the mobilization and the traffic control, because some of the contractors did consider doing work at night.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I think as we move forward through the CDBG grant process, I see projects on the ICIP, and I mean, I keep looking at roadway projects that we have and the continued deterioration of some of these roadways and just how much Placitas is now used because of what traffic does on the main highway, that it's almost serving as the relief route. And I think the longer we let it go, the worse it's going to get. So for me, especially if it meets the qualifications of the CDBG funding, I think that would be a viable project for us to really go after, especially given the nature of the fact that we've gone out to bid not once but twice now, and numbers just continually keep coming back high. Being that it is one of our major thoroughfares, and I think we've all driven that road during the winter months. I think last year was the year that, was there a water leak there, French, that caused that ice to pile up right before the old lilac shop?
Yes.
Northbound side of the lane?
Yes, that was a water leak.
So Mr. Mayor, the more we move through the process, the more I can't help but, while there's certainly some viable projects on the SCIP, but I'm looking at projects that our community relies on at the same time. And, if revitalization is part of that, with that downtown area, and Placitas ties in with that revitalization plan, I can't think of a better project than Placitas to be considered as top priority.
And I know that I think the 23rd, we'll have to finalize a project, is that correct, Rick? And French?
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, if I may, I can provide you with a cost estimate of Camino de la Placita and Civic Plaza Drive tomorrow, and that'll give you some more information, and you can weigh the options between that project and this project that we're presenting this evening.
Okay.
That'll also give us an opportunity to make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row as far as the requirements from CDBG.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
I look forward to your recommendation and consideration.
Council, anything else?
I have a question. Do you, and I'm sure you do, you know everything, you're so familiar with everything. Do you have a list of the streets in priority of how terrible they are and which ones are really in desperate need of, I mean, they all are, but top priority, all the streets?
Councilwoman Cantu, there's, yes, there are a couple of lists that exist. One of them is the CIP, which is this thing here. The other is a large report that we put together several years back, and I believe the state refers to it as HM35, and that document has every single street listed within the town of Taos proper, and it's prioritized, and each one has a dollar amount associated with it, and the total budget for that about 7 or 8 years ago was $85 million.
Ooh. Could you please email that to me, please?
Sure.
Thanks.
And French, if we could get the Placitas on this ICIP list.
Okay.
Councilor Peralta?
Yeah, French, just a question, maybe to Mr. Bellis. Is Placitas off of this simply because we had it funded for 2015? Even though, I mean, realizing that we're short, but I can't find it on this list.
It is not, and it's my understanding that once we sent this list in to the state, that we're not able to amend it until the following year.
No, I understand that, but I'm just saying, why wasn't Camilo Placita on the list?
Mr. Mayor, Council Member Peralta, the reason it came off of the list is because we had received funding for it. Simply for that reason.
And then found out it was inadequate.
That's correct.
Okay. So on our previous rankings for Camilo Placita, where was it, do you know, or can you tell us?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Peralta, I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at the old ICIP list.
I'd just like to, for edification, know what that ranking was, because I'm pretty sure it was pretty close to the top of the list. So in Councilmember Gonzalez's position, that it should be on the top of the list because of the traffic it gets. And I guess my next question was, what is the engineering, state highway department and so forth's opinion as to how long will that road last before it falls apart and we have a real issue?
Which road is that?
Placitas.
Placitas. Well, Councilmember Peralta, they're normally designed for a 20 or a 25-year.
No, I understand that, but
period.
because of the construction of it originally being so flat,
Right.
it's not lasting that long. And all I'm saying, under the current condition and the amount of patchwork we've done on that street, my feeling is it ain't gonna last 2 or 3 more years before we've got a real problem.
Right. Yes, I agree with you, and again, the reason it was not listed, again, was because we had received funding for it, and didn't realize the importance of what the traffic control measures would actually be to construct the road, whether it's during the day or evening hours. And that's where our budget was totally shot from what the contractors bid.
Thank you.
And French, is there a way to get it back on the ICIP without waiting a year? Is there, I mean, because, you know, we didn't realize that inadequate funding or the situations that we're up against, or inadvertently left it off or whatever?
Mr. Mayor, I don't know the answer to that. I can definitely try and convince NMDOT of what Councilmember Peralta just stated, that, you know, we have a $300,000 project, however, they're only giving us $70,000. You know, and try to convince them that that is a higher priority than what we have listed. And they may allow us to trade a project. I don't know.
Councilman Peralta?
Mr. Mayor, French, the funding for the fix on Camisas La Placitas is coming from where in the current budget?
It is it's a co-op project from NMDOT, and it has other funds associated with it that are from the town coffers for Civic Plaza Drive.
So it's a matching funds in order.
It's matching funds, and
So is it possible in this year's co-op funding to get additional funds to get that project done? I'm just trying to think of alternative ways of coming up with funding.
yes. Well, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Peralta, the beauty behind a co-op project is when we bring the agreements to the governing body for approval, we specify a project simply for the council's information. However, the agreement itself says for various roadways and streets within the town of Taos. So we can take that money and put it somewhere else, so long as we disclose that to NMDOT.
But I'm assuming that we don't have any other funds except what we have available from DOT in this project.
That's correct, and
So I'm just saying, looking forward to next round of funding.
well, the Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Peralta, the next round of funding, I brought that to the council several months back, and it was for the repaving or the reconstruction of the 3 roadways that lead into and out of the plaza, and that would be the South Plaza Road, the little alleyway that leads on to Don Fernando, and the one that leads behind Bernie and Connie's. When that gets funded, that money could be utilized for Camino de la Placita. And to let,
Which that priority is about equal, right?
yeah, exactly. And what I attempted to do was, we had applied for funding for Civic Plaza Drive, Camino de la Placita, and Town Hall Drive. And the idea behind that was to mingle all the monies together to try and get one big project. However, when the bidding comes separately, well, that's how the project is awarded and that's how the money is utilized. But that's always our intent, is to combine whatever grant funding we have with whatever town matches we may need. And we've been doing that for the past 15 years, so most of the time it works for us. However, in the case of the Camino de la Placita project, it didn't work for us because it was grossly underestimated.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Mr. Mayor, you can always go with option 3 of UNM-DOT's corridor study, which makes that a paired one-way and makes it their responsibility to resurface it. Just kidding.
Good one, good one.
Well,
Good
that
try.
gives the roadway to them, it becomes a state road, so that'd be good.
Yeah, I don't know how they're, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I don't know how they're gonna work that, because part of what they need to do on the state road is address the drainage issues. The only way to address the drainage issues is if they start tearing up some of the local streets to put their infrastructure in there, because they can't just sheet flow water into someone's property. So by default, they may end up building several roadways within the historic district simply because of the drainage.
That'd be all right.
Yeah, it would.
That works too.
Anything else, French?
No, sir, am I excused?
Any?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, French.
Go eat dinner, French.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I had a question for Linda. You and I talked about that we can also do a planning grant up to $50,000. And what would be the time frame on that?
Mayor, council, I believe that we would have to have public hearings like we're doing today to determine what the planning grant would be. And once we do that, then there's no deadline for planning grants. So as soon as we get done with the 2 required public hearings, then I could write one.
I'd love to move forward with that if we can.
Mr. Mayor, it's going to be staff suggestion at the meeting on the 23rd that we apply for and start the public hearing process for a $50,000 planning grant under CDBG to master plan the park, which is something we've talked about, so that we can go ahead with the new sprinkler system, the new plantings, the bathroom placements, and some of those other issues that are on hold right now. We seem to be doing pretty good on planning grants for the Plaza right now, so I think we've kind of put some money into that #1 priority as well.
And because we are at the 53% low to moderate income, we don't have to do a survey of the neighborhoods around the park. So it's just a really unique year for Taos to look at all the projects in that light.
Everything's open then, pretty much. Great. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
So this is a public hearing. Anybody else wishing to speak? If not, council,
Move to close the public hearing.
move.
Second.
We have a second.
Second.
I don't know that we need to close the public hearing because I think we can just adjourn. It was public information, and so
Motion to adjourn.
we have a motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.